Welcome to the Generational Wealth Podcast. The Federal Reserve can't fix inflation. In today's show, I'm going to show you why the Fed can't fix inflation and the 7 things that you need to do to protect your money right now. All I need you to do is smash that like button. Guys, I have no filler today. We're going straight into this topic. Why the Federal Reserve cannot fix inflation. This week, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell made a visit to Capitol Hill where he spoke before politicians, and he made it known that the Fed was going to have to raise interest rates more than expected. If you guys have been following my channel, you know we've been talking all about how the Federal Reserve is on their 8th consecutive interest rate increase. Since everything is high as hell, everything is expensive, inflation is constantly going up. And today we're going to talk about how this past meeting shows the reason why the Federal Reserve will not be able to lower the inflation rate to their desired goal, and how you need to make adjustments, because the government is never going to tell you this. The Federal Reserve is never going to tell you that they cannot fix inflation. So if you believe them, that's going to make your finances a nightmare. It's going to make your money vanish. Let me share with you guys this article. This tells you everything that you need to know. These were some key takeaways from Jerome Powell's testimony. Now, again, guys, this is going to be a quick show. I ain't going to be on here all day. I'm just giving y'all the quick, fast nuggets, and then we're going to go from there, okay? So if you look at the top of the article real quick, y'all, my computer's acting crazy. It says 5 takeaways from Powell's House testimony, all right? And when you go into the article, it talks about how the Fed is eyeing more interest rate hikes. It says Powell indicated that interest rates might need to go higher than previously anticipated, pointing to surprisingly strong economic data that is hurting the Fed's push to reduce demand for goods and services. He said that Fed officials will look at a series of economic indicators, including Wednesday data showing that there were 10.8 million job openings at the end of January, higher than analysts expected, ahead of their March 21-22 meeting. Why are they talking about this? The reason why they're talking about this is inflation is still very high. And one of the things that they're going to do to cool inflation down is make more people lose their jobs. They have to raise unemployment to slow down inflation. If too many people are employed, there's going to be too many people spending money. If there's too many people spending money, then prices are going up. The Fed has to find a way to stop spending. That's why you see job openings mentioned with everything happening regarding inflation. Now, we're not going to go into all of what this says. I'm not going to bore y'all with this. I just want y'all to see this part right here. It says, while there will be costs to success, the cost of failure will be much higher. This is regarding the threat of lingering inflation. They've been raising interest rates. Inflation is still here. He's saying that getting inflation down is going to come at a cost. He says there will be cost to success, meaning successfully lowering inflation, but the cost of failure will be much higher. So if the Federal Reserve doesn't do anything, nobody's going to be able to afford anything. Only the rich are going to be able to afford groceries. Everybody else is going to be struggling worse than they already are. That's why the Fed is doing this. He said you'd be looking at an extended period where people would learn to expect and live with high and volatile inflation. And it's very hard to have rising real incomes during such a period. In other words, what he's saying is when inflation goes up, the dollar gets weaker. Every time things get more expensive, we lose buying power. So if you get a 2% raise from your job, that means nothing because inflation is over 6%. So for every dollar that you make, everything is becoming that much higher. Your wages cannot keep up with your cost of living. That's the reason why he's saying this. He's saying if they don't stop inflation, then even if you start to make more money, it's still not going to help you that much because expenses are still growing at a faster rate than your increase in salary. Watch right here. Powell acknowledges potential job losses. Powell recognized that roughly 2 million Americans could lose their jobs this year due to the central bank's efforts to slow the economy, according to the Fed's projections. In an exchange with Rep. Joyce Beatty of Ohio, Powell confirmed that the Fed's projections show Black unemployment rising 2.3%, while white unemployment would rise just 0.9%. This is the reason why you need to know this. You wonder, what's the point of the average person knowing what the Fed is doing? Because the Fed directly controls Black employment. Black people are the most reliant upon a 9-to-5 employment structure. Black people only control 2% of all businesses in America. We're the most susceptible to these kinds of recessions. So we got to be able to watch this. It says when unemployment goes up quickly in a recession, it goes up much faster for African Americans. When the economy grows again, it comes down faster. Powell said, adding that he wants to create a period of sustainable growth that would keep Black unemployment down. So I just want y'all to see from this article, the Fed is talking about raising interest rates, and he knows that this can cause 2 million jobs to be lost, with Black people being the main ones struggling. I want to show y'all this clip from what happened at the recent meeting that Jerome Powell had. This was with a Republican from Louisiana. I want y'all to watch what happens here. This is still about the subject of unemployment.
Right now, the current inflation rate is 6.4%, and the current unemployment rate is 3.4%. Now, if history is right, I'm not asking you to again blame anybody, but if history is right, unless you get some help, in order to get inflation down from 6.4% to, let's say, 4.4%, and the unemployment rate is going to have to rise to 7% based on history.
Now, I want you to notice what he just said. He said, unless you get some help, and he's talking about how there has to be spending cuts from Congress. They have to cut the spending to help the Federal Reserve lower inflation. If the government keeps spending all this money, it's going to make the Fed work that much harder to cripple the economy. That's not what we want to do. Right here, he's saying if nobody else steps in, unemployment is going to go up to 7%. Watch this.
That's what the record would say.
Okay.
And notice what he says. The chairman of the Federal Reserve, he's acknowledging the facts. He understands every time that this has happened in history, it's caused a massive rise in unemployment. This is why you need to watch what's happening, guys. This is the reason why today I'm going to show you 7 things that you need to do to protect your money, because the Federal Reserve is making forward progress with mass layoffs. Watch this.
And to get inflation down to 2.2% based on history.
Because remember, He just said if you take inflation from 6.4%, where it's currently at, down to 4.4%, you're looking at bringing up unemployment to 7%. Right now, unemployment is at 3%, a historical low. If it goes from 3% all the way up to 7%, you're going to have a lot of people out of jobs.
An immutable fact, unemployment would have to go to 10.6%.
Now, I want you to notice this. The Federal Reserve's goal is to lower inflation down to 2%. That's the target. He's saying that if the Federal Reserve does this, this will raise unemployment all the way up to 10%. Do you know the kind of losses that would mean for the average person? Do you know how many people will become homeless? Do you know how many increases in crime America would have? We are not ready for what is going to happen this year. Right now, they just announced that there was a very large bank that failed. I'm going to do a show about that, Lord willing, next week. I need y'all to stay tuned. For the past 2 years, I kept telling y'all, a crash is coming. A crash is coming. It's now coming to a head. All of the final pieces are coming together. And these are some of the last opportunities that you will have to get your money and your life in order before this American economy takes a hit. Watch this.
Would it not?
No, I wouldn't.
That's what the record shows. That's what the history shows.
Yeah, I don't think that kind of a number is at all in
I
play
mean,
here.
I know you're reluctant to admit it, and you don't want to get in the middle of a policy.
And the
You're trying
reason
to
why
put
he
people
keeps saying that is because every time he's being asked really important questions, he's almost dodging it, because for him to answer, he has to then put the government out there. He has to tell the government, hey, y'all are making my job hard. You're making life hard for me because I keep trying to get the economy regulated. Y'all keep increasing spending. There's no way that I'm going to be able to effectively cool the economy. That's the reason why they're having this back and forth. So we're only going to play a little bit more of this, but I just want you to notice what's happening.
would have to go to 10.6%. Would it not?
No, I wouldn't.
That's what the record shows. That's what the history shows.
Yeah, I don't think that kind of a number is at all in
Very
play
I mean,
here.
I know you're reluctant to admit it, and you don't want to get in the middle of a policy dispute. But I think it's undeniable.
The reason why he's talking about a policy dispute is because Democrats and Republicans are going at it. It's escalating to the point where America's about to hit a debt ceiling, and nobody's willing to budge from where they are. It's creating more problems. Powell has to stay neutral. He can't take the side of the Democrats or the Republicans. He's got to stay right in the middle, and he's just got to speak to the economic facts.
It's undeniable that the only way we're going to get this sticky inflation down is to attack it on the monetary side, which you're doing, and on the fiscal side, which means Congress has got to reduce the rate of growth of spending and reduce the rate of growth of debt accumulation.
Now, the reason why he's using the term sticky inflation is because despite the Fed's attempts to lower inflation by raising the interest rates, the inflation is staying at its levels. The reason is there's other factors that's keeping inflation high that the Fed cannot control. We're going to talk more about that. In everything that's happened over the past few years with the pandemic and everything that y'all see happening right now with Russia and Ukraine, there's a lot of different factors that plays a part in why the Federal Reserve can't fix inflation.
Now, I get that you don't want to get in the middle of that fight, but the more we help on the fiscal side, the fewer people you're going to have to put out of work. Isn't that a fact?
Please answer.
Could work out that way.
Sir?
I want you to notice what he said. He said it could work out that way. He didn't want to give a definite yes, but he made it known that if the government did more to control the spending, among other things, then he wouldn't have to get so many people out of their jobs. Because this is going to happen, millions of people are facing unemployment over the next 9 months. So I want you guys to be really aware of what's happening. Ariel said, I'm so glad you're breaking this down. This is so important. Unfortunately, a lot of people are not going to see this until it's too late. So that's why it's so important for you guys to know what's going on right now, so that way you can make the right adjustments. Let me give you guys the 3 things that the Fed is going to do. The Fed first is going to start reducing the size of their interest rate hikes. They've already made 8 consecutive interest rate increases. They can only do this, but so much. Even at 8 straight interest rate hikes, inflation is still at 6%. Now, it's not as high as 9% as where it peaked before, but they still got a very long way to go. You got to ask yourself, how much longer can they do this before they call it quits? This is why you're seeing when the Fed announces that they have an interest rate increase, it's going to be by 75 basis points, 50 basis points, 25 basis points. In layman's terms, they keep raising it by less and less. The reason why they're raising it by less is because they don't want to go over and damage the economy. They're trying to find a sweet spot so that way they don't tank the economy into a recession. The Federal Reserve, they have a very important job. They have to make sure that the economy is stable while also making sure that there is maximum employment. And right now, things are not in balance. The second thing that the Fed has to do, what they're going to do, this is just my prediction. The Fed is eventually going to pause their interest rate hikes. It's inevitable. They're going to notice that they're not going to be able to bring this thing down to 2%. That's the reason why it's called sticky inflation. They've tried to raise interest rates by 8 times already, and inflation is still at 6%. And as you could see, the Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, he said inflation is still unexpectedly high. They're going to have to increase the interest rates more than they were hoping because inflation is higher than what they projected. This is the reason why I keep telling y'all. The government and the media keeps telling you, oh, we're not going through a recession. Everything is fine. And every time you see the Federal Reserve give an update, they're always saying it's a little bit more than what we expected. We're going to have to do this a little bit longer. These rates are going to have to stay longer than we expected. It's going to have to be like this over time. They keep just lying to y'all because they know if they keep it a buck with you and tell you that the market is suffering, there's going to be a lot of panic. There's a lot of people that's spending money, but at the same time, the spending has to stop. So many people are looking at all the spending and saying, wow, you know, what a strong economy. The economy clearly isn't suffering that bad. But the things that the Federal Reserve is going to have to do over the next 12 months to get a handle on this is going to lead to a lot of downfalls for the average person. That's why I want you to be prepared. The first thing that the Fed is going to do is they're going to reduce the size of their interest hikes. You can already see that happening now. The second thing that the Federal Reserve is going to eventually do is pause increasing the interest rates altogether. They're going to realize that they can't get it down to the desired 2%. That's why they're calling it sticky inflation. It's sticking where it is. And even though it might gradually go down by a little bit, it's not going to get to the desired goal. The Federal Reserve is going to look at that and say, well, hey, we can't keep raising the interest rates more and more and more and more, because if we overdo it, the entire market is going to crumble. We keep raising the interest rates and we see it's not going where we want it to go. Eventually, they're going to stop trying. And then that's going to lead to the third step, which is they're going to have to start cutting rates. Now, before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about why the inflation is so stuck where it's at. One of the main reasons for this is because of the supply chain. There's been a lot of supply chain disruptions that have happened over the past few years. For example, y'all remember what happened with the pandemic, where there were all of these different shutdowns? When the shutdowns happened, that made everything go out of whack. I've told y'all about how America was in a trick bag because it had to print trillions of dollars to give to Americans in stimulus money. We loved the checks at the time. Now we're paying for it. All of the problems that happened with the businesses being shut down are now backfiring on us. Our chickens have come home to roost. We have supply chain issues. We have transportation delays. I wish Yasha Allah was on. He would tell you all about how trucks is getting backed up. Oh, he is on. Shout out to my brother Yasha Allah. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat. I didn't even expect to see you on, man. Good to see you on, my brother. Yasha Allah said that's true about the jobs. One trucking company just shut down last week, and that was 200 drivers out of a job. Oh, man. So if truckers are going out of business, what does that let you know? The supply chain is having that harder of a time being able to transport goods. That means it's going to keep inflation going. The economy right now is in a bad place, y'all. I'm just telling you, you might not be able to see it right now. Oh, but it's coming. And I wish that you would see it right now, so that way you would make the adjustment before things kick into its next phase, which is going to be bad. The pandemic caused shutdowns. We're now looking at transportation delays, which led to higher prices for goods. This included lumber. You saw how much prices went up with homes. Food, you see how high groceries are, and electronics. Even though supply chains are beginning to recover, a lot of the prices are still very high. Another thing that's keeping inflation very sticky is wage increases, okay? When workers receive higher wages, businesses pass on the cost to consumers. If everybody needs to make more money, because we talk about how people are not getting a high enough raise to keep up with inflation, whenever the businesses do try to give people more money, guess who pays for that? You, the consumer. That makes all of the prices higher. So this is one of the reasons why there's sticky inflation also. There has to be higher prices to be able to afford the cost of labor for employees. Lastly, market expectations. Guys, people like me study the market. When you begin to look at the market and you see how these prices are on the rise, that then keeps inflation going, because people are going to adjust their behavior. People are going to start looking at what's happening in the market, and then that's when they're going to want to raise their prices. So if you're a business owner right now and you know that inflation is on the rise, you have to raise your prices just to keep yourself in business. I already talked about what's going on with war and how that can disrupt supply chains. A few days ago, Russia just launched all these missiles in Ukraine. It's popping off right now, y'all. I don't know what else to tell you. When that happens, it reduces production, all of which leads to higher prices. Like I said, the Fed is eventually going to have to pause their interest rate increases and then cut the rate hikes. The reason why they're going to have to cut the interest rate is because it's going to get too bad for the economy. The government and the masses of the people, they're going to complain too much about what the Fed is doing, and that's going to stop them from being able to cool inflation. And then that's when things over time will get worse. Like Powell said, the success of lowering inflation is going to come at a cost, but I don't know if the average American is willing to pay for that. Remember, in the 2008 recession, interest rates went to zero for about 7 years. And that's one of the things that you need to be on the lookout for. When the pandemic happened, interest rates went down to zero to try to make life easier for Americans. But this is the problem. We're not going to go through an easy time. I just want to warn you all about that. Over the next 5 years, there's going to be hardships. So let's talk about the 7 things that you can do to protect your money right now. Okay. The 7 things that you can do right now to protect your money is to first build an emergency fund of 6 months worth of living expenses, bare minimum. You know, I'm always telling you guys, have an emergency fund of at least 3 to 6 months. The way that the Fed is talking, you want to have at least 6 months. This is because if inflation gets higher and the Fed can't stop it, you need money just to be able to afford your current cost of living. If interest rates go higher and millions of people get laid off, you need to have a way to support your unemployment. Second thing that you need to do, you need to lower your debt. Okay? You need to get out of debt as fast as you can. Higher interest rates mean that it's going to be more expensive for you to borrow money. This includes credit cards, personal loans, and car loans. If you have any of these kinds of debts, especially with credit cards, you need to pay them off, because as the interest rates go higher, so will the interest rate on your credit card. The third thing that you need to do is you need to invest in assets that hedge against inflation. This includes real estate, commodities like gold, and certain kinds of stocks. You want to make sure that you invest in assets that protect you during times of inflation. When inflation goes up, so does your investments. I own over $1 million worth of real estate. And one of the reasons why my real estate has been so successful is because whenever inflation goes up, so does my property cost. The fourth thing that you want to do is you want to be mindful of your spending. Okay. You want to make sure that you're managing your money during this time. I've told you guys before, you need to get on a zero-based budget. You need to make sure that you're living within your means. The fifth thing that you want to do, if possible, it might be hard, refinance when necessary. If you're able to refinance and you're actually able to get better rates, you need to look into that. Whether you're talking about your mortgage, whether you're talking about your student loan, I know that for a lot of you guys, the interest rates are probably higher than what you already have, but there's some of you guys that may benefit from a refinance. If you refinance, you're able to lock in the rates now before the interest rates go even higher. The sixth thing that you want to do, diversify your investments. Guys, you want to be able to buy different kinds of investments right now. Don't have all of your money in one place. You also want to make sure that you buy the dip. One of the things that buy the dip means is as the market is going down, buy when everything is on sale. Don't worry about the price going down. Go in there now, give yourself time. Last but not least, guys, stay informed. I want you to stay informed on everything that's happening, so that way you know how to be able to properly manage your money as a wise investor. Okay, so these are the 7 things that you can do to protect your money during this time. But I'm out of here, guys. I got to shut this down. If you enjoyed this podcast, please smash the like button. Please donate, give a super chat, or you could go to Cash App, $Gen Wealth Podcast, and I'll see y'all next Monday. Until next time, keep pushing.